Have you ever thought that in the distant past, there were women who shaped cultures, led wars, and made great changes in history? Women who even great empires were proud of their power. In this video, we tell you the story of women that even history could not ignore. So if you want to know more, be sure to stay with us until the end. We start with a general look at the role and position of women in indigenous societies. Women were not only mothers and wives, but also cultural and spiritual leaders. In many indigenous tribes, women were like the cornerstone of society. They were not only at home, but political leaders, spiritual, and even warriors who defended their families and tribes. But what changed the role of women in these societies? The role of women in these societies caused profound changes in social and cultural structures. Women functioned not only as mothers and wives, but also as spiritual leaders, teachers of traditions, and even warriors. In many native tribes, they were guardians of wisdom and sacred rituals, and through their connection with nature and spirits, they helped maintain the balance between society and the spiritual world. These roles gave women high power and influence and made important social and even political decisions to be made with their participation. Also, women played a key role in religious ceremonies and rituals of power transfer, and through these roles, they influenced the cultures around them. As a result, indigenous women played an important role in preserving and transmitting tribal and cultural values. And even in times of crisis, they were able to change the course of society with their leadership power. In this section, we present real stories of indigenous women who were able to make great changes in the culture and traditions of their own tribes. One of the most amazing stories is about women who were able to challenge the old traditions of the tribe and make a big change in people's lives. For example, a certain woman, with her resistance and courage, was able to raise the status of women in society. In the history of indigenous societies, there were women who, with their courage, intelligence, and influence, were able to create huge changes in the culture and traditions of their tribes. These stories of indigenous women show how their role in shaping history and indigenous cultures was unique. 1. Nancy Ward, leader and diplomat of the Cherokee tribe. Nancy Ward, known as Gigao, or Beloved Woman, was one of the most influential women in Native American history. He was from the Cherokee tribe and played an important role in maintaining peace between his tribe and European settlers in the 18th century. When her husband was killed in battle, Nancy took his gun and continued to fight. After this battle, he was elected as the leader of the tribe and was able to play an important diplomatic role in the negotiations with the colonists. Nancy Ward also tried to change the old Cherokee traditions. She was one of the first to change the role of women in Cherokee society and tried to get more rights for them. One of his biggest actions was trying to prevent the sale of tribal lands, which was vital to the preservation of Cherokee identity and culture. Second, Lavina Telkavia, Lozan. Apache warrior Lavina, known as Lozan, was one of the indigenous Apache women who was able to play a key role in the tribal wars and the fight against the Spanish and American colonialists. Besides being a brave warrior, he was also known as a healer and spiritual medium. In a society traditionally led by men in warfare, Lavina was able as a woman to not only participate in battle, but to devise important war strategies for her tribe. Lavina also had a psychic ability that helped her sense the location of her enemies, and this trait made her clan more successful in battles. She is known as a symbol of the resistance and strength of indigenous women, and her influence on Apache culture is still remembered. 3. Willix, Weetamoo, the warrior queen of Pocamotac Willix, was one of the powerful women of the Pocamotac tribe in New England. As a political and spiritual leader, he played a key role in the wars between the colonialists and the natives. During his lifetime, Willix was able to mobilize numerous forces against the immigrants and defend the rights and lands of his tribe. She was one of the women who defied tribal traditions and emerged as a warrior and political leader instead of merely playing a marginal role in society. Her life story shows that indigenous women can excel as military and political leaders and fight to preserve their tribal culture and traditions. 4. Catherine Tekakwitha, Kateri Tekakwitha, native St. Catherine Tekakwitha, known as Lily Mohawk, was one of the indigenous Mohawk women who brought about major changes in the spiritual and cultural beliefs of her tribe. She was the first native woman to convert to Christianity, and using her new teachings, she was able to make changes in the rituals and beliefs of the tribe. He was recognized as a saint for his spiritual power. Catherine was able to defy the traditions of her tribe while gaining a lot of respect in her native community. After his death, he became a prominent spiritual icon among indigenous peoples and even the Catholic Church, and was canonized by Pope Benedict XVI in 2012. 5. Marie Angelique Kaplan. Marie Angelique Kaplan, tribal reformer Marie Angelique Kaplan, was one of the strong and influential women among the Métis tribe in Canada. With his power and diplomacy, he was able to resolve the differences between different native tribes and was trying to create unity between the tribes. He also did many activities in the field of education and preservation of native language and culture. Using her social intelligence and diplomatic abilities, Marie was able to bring about important changes in the way the tribes dealt with each other and even the colonists. His influence continues to be felt in Canada's Indigenous communities. These stories show the huge influence of women who shaped or changed their traditions and cultures in the history of the Indigenous peoples of the world. With their courage, intelligence, and leadership roles, these women broke the traditional boundaries and gave meaning to the history and identity of their tribes. In this section, we discuss women who participated in tribal wars and sometimes even appeared as commanders. It may be hard to believe, but in many indigenous societies, women were present in wars and sometimes even became commanders of the battlefield. They defended their tribe and family with courage and bravery, and their names remained forever in history as women who fought in wars. Tribes have played very important and surprising roles in the history of the indigenous peoples of the world natively. Women also participated in battles as warriors, strategists, and leaders. Here are some examples of women who bravely and skillfully participated in tribal wars. 1. Lovina Lozin, warrior of the Apache tribe. Lovina was one of the most prominent warrior women of the Apache tribe who played a vital role in the tribal wars and the fight against the Spanish and American colonialists. He became famous for his spiritual abilities and war strategies. It is said that he had a special spiritual ability that helped him sense the location of his enemies. Along with her brother and other warriors of her tribe, Lovina participated in the campaigns against the American and Spanish forces. He was not only a warrior, but also acted as the spiritual guide of the tribe. He was also responsible for taking care of women and children in some battles and protected them from enemies. Lovina was an example of courage and resistance of women in war until the last moments of her life. 2. Annie Oakley. Native American warrior Annie Oakley was one of the most famous Native American warrior women, known for her amazing marksmanship skills. Although she did not engage in traditional tribal warfare, she was recognized as a symbol of female power during the Native American wars and struggles against the colonialists. Annie was able to be recognized as a role model of female warrior through shooting shows and participating in military programs. In many of his shows, he demonstrated his shooting skills and even participated in military programs. She became a kind of symbol of the strength and courage of Native American women and showed that women could play an active role in wars and battles. 3. Calumet. Leader and warrior of the Comanche tribe, Calumet was one of the prominent women of the Comanche tribe who participated in tribal battles and campaigns against immigrant forces and colonists. Society where men were usually known as war leaders, he was able to become an important warrior with his strength and skill. Together with the warriors of his tribe, He fought against the enemies of the tribe and played an effective role in the battles. Due to his military prowess and bravery against his enemies, Calumet became a heroic symbol, and his name is remembered in Comanche history. Fourth, Willix, Weetamoo. The warrior queen of Pocomotac Willix was one of the brave and powerful women of the Pocomotuck tribe in New England who participated in tribal battles against European colonists. As the leader of the tribe, he led his forces to fight the European settlers. Willix was not only a brave warrior, but also a spiritual and political leader of his tribe. In one of the battles, Willix bravely stood up to the British forces and tried to defend his land and people against their invasion. As a warrior woman, she was able to challenge the traditional boundaries of her native society and showed that women could play vital roles in wars. Iga, native warrior of the Navajo tribe. Iga was one of the warrior women of the Navajo tribe who participated in tribal battles and campaigns against American forces in the 19th century. As a brave warrior, he played an effective role in leading Navajo resistance groups and fought alongside men in many battles. Enmiga was known for her military prowess and bravery, and was even referred to by some American forces as a fearless warrior woman. She is known in Navajo history as one of the women who helped preserve the tribe's culture and identity. These female warriors, with their courage and military abilities, showed that in indigenous societies, women can not only play a role in the home and community, but also play key and heroic roles on the battlefield. Their stories continue to inspire future generations and show that women's courage and strength are not limited by traditional boundaries. These female rituals and ceremonies show the importance of women in preserving and transmitting spiritual and social traditions in indigenous communities. Through these ceremonies, women played vital roles in educating future generations, maintaining the health of society, and communicating with the spiritual world. These rituals are still held in some indigenous communities and have a deep impact on their culture and identity. In this section, we discuss rituals and ceremonies in which Native women play an important role. Native women have a key role in many spiritual rituals. They act not only as spiritual leaders, but also as links between the material and spiritual worlds. Some of these rituals are still left in today's cultures. Women's rituals and ceremonies in societies. Natives have been an important part of the culture and traditions of these societies and have played a special role in preserving identity, transferring knowledge, and strengthening social solidarity. These ceremonies are specifically dedicated to women. It is usually associated with important stages of their lives, such as puberty, marriage, pregnancy, and even death and communication with spirits. 1. Rites of passage. In many indigenous tribes, the coming-of-age ceremony for girls was one of the most important female rituals that marked the transition from childhood to adulthood. These ceremonies were usually held upon reaching the age of puberty and the first menstruation, and were held as a sign of the girl entering the world of womanhood and accepting new social roles. For example, among the Navajo tribe, the Kinaalda ceremony was held for girls coming of age. The ceremony, which usually lasted several days, included singing, dancing, and sacred prayers. During this period, the girl was given special education in the field of social, spiritual, and family roles. Also, some puberty ceremonies were accompanied by special rituals such as long runs to show girls' physical strength and endurance. 2. Ceremonies related to pregnancy and childbirth. Pregnancy and childbirth were considered sacred in many indigenous societies, and special rituals and ceremonies were held for pregnant women. Pregnant women were highly respected as carriers of life and continuity of generations, and many ceremonies were designed to support and protect them and the child in the womb. In some native tribes, pregnant women benefited from the spiritual support of the community by using prayers, religious rituals, and even the use of medicinal plants. The birth ceremony was also usually performed with the presence of other women of the tribe and was considered as a collective and spiritual experience for all the women of the tribe. The roles of women in this ceremony were very prominent, and they were known as caregivers and guardians of the birth process and the life of the newborn baby. 3. Marriage rituals. Marriage ceremony was another important ritual for women in indigenous societies. These ceremonies were often performed with special customs, and women played key roles in them. Marriage was not only a family bond, but also strengthened social and economic ties between different tribes. In different tribes, women, as guardians of traditions and customs, were responsible for conducting marriage ceremonies. For example, in some Native American tribes, the women of the bride's family played an important role in the preparation of the ceremony and oversaw the strict implementation of the marriage traditions. Ceremonies usually included prayers, ritual dances, and the exchange of symbolic gifts. 4. Religious rituals and communication with spirits. In many indigenous societies, women played important roles in religious rituals and communication with spirits. They acted as intermediaries between the physical world and the spiritual world, and were responsible for conducting religious ceremonies, usually held to protect the community, ask for blessings or healing, or communicate with ancestral spirits. For example, among the Hadza and some other African tribes, women played a key role in religious ceremonies. They often communicated with spirits and transmitted spiritual messages to the community. Also, in these tribes, women acted as healers and magicians and treated patients through rituals and the use of medicinal plants. 5. Ceremonies related to death and mourning. Women in many indigenous societies were responsible for performing mourning ceremonies and honoring the dead. By holding certain rituals, they tried to calm the soul of the deceased person and establish a connection between the material and spiritual world. These ceremonies were often accompanied by dancing, singing, prayer, and the use of special symbols. For example, in African tribes such as the Zulu, women were responsible for performing mourning ceremonies, and through special rituals, they prayed for the dead so that their souls would rest in peace. They were also responsible for maintaining the graves and memorials of the ancestors and played a key role in maintaining the spiritual connection with the spirits. These indigenous women we talked about are not just the heroes of their own tribe. They changed the course of history with their courage and abilities. Even today, many women who fight for equal rights and justice are inspired by these women. The video was interesting for you. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and activate the bell so that you don't miss our next videos. We are waiting for your comments and suggestions, and be sure to share the video with your